And welcome back. It's been a couple of weeks. We've had a little bit of a break. So thanks for joining us again. What's happened since we've been away, Tom? What's happened? This is where every moment that's happened in the last X weeks has disappeared.
Yeah. I've had a holiday and you've won the competition. I think that's everything that I can remember.
Yeah, so I happen to be wearing one of the freebie t-shirts as well, which have finally arrived. I'm like, turn up to these hackathons and turn up to these meetups because you get free stuff. So then you'll never have to buy a t-shirt again because you just keep on getting free t-shirts. So that's my benefit. But yes, hackathon entry. So cast your mind back. Maybe I haven't mentioned it, but cast your mind back maybe a couple months back. I entered into my first ever hackathon. Hackathon is basically where you code something and you upload it where they can see your code, which is referred to as open source, as in people can see it and they can make contributions to the code if they wanted to, and like flag issues and so forth. So I made a first ever hackathon a couple of months back, and that basically got me silver for best Easter egg or most fun. And then I entered again this time round and it got me gold. I don't think I don't recall ever winning a gold until now. So I've got gold in this one.
Like celebrations in the video edit.
Yeah. This is like, this is where the trumpets and the tinsel or the confetti, comes out, which I was super happy about and very proud of myself because I was making it my goal to get gold. So this time round, I merged Rick and Morty with X Factor and used OpenAI's ChatGPT 3.5 to review somebody's README. Now, README is an explanation of what your code is. So if you have a repository, which is where your code sits, is publicly accessible, I then can look at that and read the README file and then basically give a Simon Cowell-esque review based on categories. So that won, again, gold for best Easter egg / nice. Most fun. So I'm very happy about that.
We'll have to have a screen recording on the screen or something alongside you.
Like insert here. So I'm really happy that went down. I'm also really happy over the last maybe 2 months now. I've gone from, I think my heaviest was 90 kilograms and I'm now 79.5, I think. I've finally beaten the 80 kilograms. And I thought I would share what I've been doing because I think it kind of matches very much with the fulfillment stuff that we spoke about last time, of like removing the external need for encouragement or external need for approval or positive affirmation and switch it for internal fulfillment. And I think my fitness journey, I've always been, never been to the gym, always used life. I always said life is my gym, and that gets me out of going to the gym. So you do stuff in life like lifting can of beans or lift up box or whatever. But I'm really happy with my progress and I'm hoping to carry on going with that progress. But I thought I would just go through some of the stuff, especially if somebody's listening and finding it hard to, one, enter into a space where your mindset is kind of like really like on the edge, cutting edge, really pushing yourself. Because sometimes a lot of that comes from, like an aspect of unhealthiness of either, sleep patterns or eating patterns or fitness and weight and like health. So yeah, I'll just run through basically recap what I did. So first things first, I did calorie deficit. So calorie deficit is where I first count all my calories that I take in. I count all my calories that go out. And then I'm trying to minus it out, aka you eat X calories and you work out X. So then you have a 0, X minus X vibe. But broadly speaking, I think calorie deficit could also be that generally speaking, I'm burning like 2,000, 2,100 calories just by existing. So you want to try and kind of just like lower it down below that rather than having an actual deficit in calories. So I think that was one of the first things I did. And then I upped my squash playing. And then I was fasting, doing intermittent fasting. And there's a thing called intermittent fasting, you can do different hours. So I was doing like a 16-8, which means I don't eat from 8 p.m. until 12 noon, which gives your body time to digest. And also in the mornings, I think at the 12-hour or 10-hour mark, you start burning fat. And then at the 12-hour mark, I think you start, your cells start rebuilding themselves. So it's a starting point. And they say if you fast for 72 hours, 72 hours is the pinnacle point at which your cells like regenerate most effectively. It's called something that I've forgotten the name. Ergonom. No, I can't remember the name of it now, which is unhelpful. But yeah, I have this app that shows you when you hit that point where it's basically cell regeneration. And I'm like, generally speaking, if we're ill, we're never told, hey, if you fast, your body has a mechanism to rebuild cells after, and it will start it after X hours. I think it's 10 or 12 hours of fasting, and it will carry it on. And the peak of that is at 72 hours kind of thing. So I was like, oh, like, is fasting used as a health mechanism to regenerate cells? Very interesting. So yeah, that's like a good thing that I've been doing. And intaking lots of water, trying to cut down on eating outside of like dinner and lunch and dinner, which again, it's like, it's okay to feel hungry. I think that's what I've realized. And then you slowly over time build a sense of discipline, which means you can't be bothered to do the calories. Like you can't be bothered to intake a calories of a Mars bar, which is like 200 calories, because that's the equivalent of me walking for 45 minutes. So it's not worth the calories. So you have this like increased sense of mental discipline. But it's always down to because you see results, and you'll see results in 2 weeks, right? So think of like, you're going to start something, you're not going to see anything for 2 weeks, depending on how severe you go in. But I saw some stuff quite quickly.
And
I was just weighing myself.
Next days.
Yeah. Like I was weighing myself every morning at roughly the same time, you know, after you go to the toilet and where you stark naked to get the best results, you know? So it's just like the consistency.
Manscape.
Yeah. Don't weigh yourself at night because you've always got water weight, right? So, and I've been changing my sleep. So I've been trying to sleep more consistently, aka go to bed around 11ish. I'm failing right now because I've kind of come out of it a little bit. But my goal was to go to bed at 11 and then wake up at 7:30. And again, I've been reading lots about the consistency of sleep is really, really important. So even on weekends, I was going to bed at 11, waking up at 7:30 and trying to keep that consistency. And I just sensed a feeling of like, every time you get up, you're going to feel groggy. It doesn't matter if you wake up at 10 a.m. or 7 a.m., you're going to feel groggy. So which one do you prefer? So I preferred doing it, even though I'm not a morning person, I was preferring to doing it at 7:30 because cool, you're going to be groggy whatever time you wake up. And also then you have way more in the day. So I basically have an extra like 2.5 hours or 2 hours to get stuff done before then the day actually starts rolling. So I found that was really good for productivity, which then makes time go a bit slower. You enjoy that because you're enjoying moments more deeply because time is going slower. So yeah, there's a bunch of stuff that I've done. And then you've just got to not necessarily like go so hardcore that you fall out of the discipline really easy. You want to find a nice pattern. So I do like Huel for lunch, which is just a scoop is 200 calories, 2 scoops is 400 calories, mix it with water. And then like dinner time, or tea time, I've switched to say dinner now. Tea time would be, there's these meals called simmer, which, you know, Chunks off the Beta Squad.
Yep.
Yeah. So he promotes these ready-made meals that are really tasty, that are roughly like, they're always below 500 calories. And they're really good. Just throw them in the microwave. So I've been doing that a lot, and air frying stuff, which helps, you know, more clean food.
So after this transformation, as we call it, what has changed other than the discipline? What on the feelings or thoughts, positive or negative, that you're like, actually, I've got way more energy, or actually, I feel more sad more regularly because I'm more hungry all the time? Or what are the different things that have
Yeah, I think
piqued your interest?
Yeah, I think the most important thing more than anything is just general mood. Is I'm happier. One, because I look physically better, and I notice it, because even if you look back 2 months of like the podcast, even, you'll notice there's a difference between that Dan and this Dan now. So I think like seeing the difference, generally mood is much, much higher. I think the key thing is recognizing when you're hungry, I will snack rather than actually make a meal. So if I have better discipline in making the meal, then it means that I'm like satisfying my body's need for food rather than kind of like just like ticking along with snacking. So I think it's the discipline side of like going into the supermarket. And before I'd be like, yeah, cool, a couple of chocolate bars or some chocolate eclairs or whatever. But now it's like, yeah, it's literally not worth the calories. So I can't be bothered intaking it because I know that I'll have to work it off or whatever. So yeah, I think it's the general mood. I'm much more optimistic and positive. I've not noticed energy changes. I've not noticed that I'm more energetic. I've just noticed generally my mood is far better and I'm more positive and
Have you
optimistic.
had any dips in the afternoon? Classic slumps?
There's actually another app that I've been using to cut down caffeine. So broadly speaking, I don't go crazy with caffeine, but there's like a 10-hour caffeine like slump or like the 10-hour effect. So they try and get you to drink your caffeine in the morning and then not have caffeine then for the rest of the day. It also, like your peak, there's usually a peak in the morning, there's a dip in the afternoon, and then there's a peak in the evening. So again, I do notice those. But because this particular app, I think it's called like Rise, I can't check because my phone is my camera. It telling the dips, the peaks and troughs, you can kind of like expect it. So you can kind of like work around it. So for example, you know that there's a peak coming. So if you, there's a trough coming. So if you do exercise, you'll avoid the dip. Okay. So if you can kind of like avoid the dip, like if there's a dip coming, if I go for a walk, then I don't feel that dip of like tiredness of stuff, right? Because you're counteracting with like boosting your energy with a sense of exercise. So yeah, there's lots of good little apps out there that are free and stuff. But generally, calorie counting in a spreadsheet, you'll notice how much you snack or how many calories are in things that you never thought about before, wouldn't have batted an eyelid and so forth. And something really interesting. So a couple of weeks back, the two things that are interesting. Diary of a CEO podcast, there was a guy called Brian Johnson, and he's doing like a blueprint where he's analyzing everything in his life and trying to basically reverse age by doing supplements, healthy eating, exercise, and sleep, and so forth. So I found his analysis and journey of that very fascinating, to kind of like reverse age so much so that he could persist his life for as long as he could. So I thought that was inspiring, some of the detail and intricacy and the enjoyment that he finds from trying to kind of like move these markers and boost things up and so forth. And then secondly, I think somebody else, some other podcast, again, Diary of a CEO, but another episode specifically was talking about like nature and health and how we've kind of forgone stuff that we naturally used to do. So generally speaking, we will do the easy stuff, which is if there's an escalator, we'll go up the escalator rather than going up the stairs. And because we've facilitated that in our culture, we're slowly removing the life is a gym or life is your workout stuff everywhere, little by little. So like trying to do stairs more than escalators and stuff. But specifically, the point that jumped out was, I've literally forgotten it and I'm trying to jog my memory because I got distracted.
Should I add a separate story? Do you remember me running up the stairs and racing you versus the escalator? Was it in the flat that you're in now? Or was it the last flat and it was on like the 20th floor or whatever? And it was
probably
dusty.
the last flat, yeah.
I felt like I literally couldn't walk because my legs were constantly shutting off every time I did a step after that.
Exactly, because they hadn't painted it. It was super dusty, so you probably did have some sort of like lung damage because of breathing in like concrete dust. Or
probably.
But yeah, I can't remember the point that I was going to make. That's annoying. But yeah, it's about
so, losing weight affects memory loss, does it?
Yeah, it does. It's about, generally speaking, people have always changed. That was it. Our society, we've built, our society, we believe that being muscular and big is attractive. However, in other cultures, being big and muscular is a privilege, because ultimately, if you're big and muscular, you then have to eat food and work out to sustain that size and scale. So generally speaking, that's a rich person's kind of approach to things. Whereas generally speaking, other cultures, like, you can be lean and thin because that's more sustainable. If you're bulky and big, it's expensive to persist that. And it takes more time and energy, which is time and energy really sustaining rather than utilizing it on the things that you are doing with your body, right? Like the actual activities that we should be focused on, like the work, I'll say work, right? Work activities, whatever those work activities are, rather than literally just sustaining massive biceps or massive triceps or massive like pectorals or whatever. I was like, that's actually very fascinating. So really, you should never necessarily try to get big, because it's something that then you need to sustain, which in itself becomes a task, when really you should be just looking for stability of health and like persistent kind of like ease in that, unless you're a bodybuilder and you're doing competitions and you make money for being big.
Very fascinating. The random thing that popped into my brain whilst you're talking about that is I've realised that you've got the Apple cables going in, but you've got the AirPods.
Yeah, so I have headphones just as fallback, but I've switched it so the sound comes through my AirPods, because it's just easier, so that I can move around and not be worried that I'm going to yank the cable out.
Cable dongle, if anyone was wondering that.
Yeah. It's not that it's going up the side of my neck or whatever like that. So, but yeah, so I thought my health journey the last few weeks has been really, really good, and then that's great positive news. On the negative news.
So is that, just before we go into the negative news, is that
before we go into the
I'm
trough,
going to sustain this level, or is it like now I'm aiming for 70 kg or 75, or you're like, I'm happy at this level now, it's maintaining?
Yeah, so I'm doing a little bit of both. I want to maintain like around the 80 like kilograms, but ideally I want to go down to 75, because I think that'll be really, really good for me. So ideally I don't want to go over 80, but I want to go down. You know?
Go down to 70 just before Christmas, and then you'll level out at 75 after Christmas.
Stack it up. Yeah, exactly. Like averages 75. So yeah, I would say I'm trying to carry on, but now the easy stuff has been done, right? I've done a quick succession, and then it's starting to like level out,
plateau.
So it's a bit harder now. It means I need to up my squash stuff and do more exercise, more walking to kind of like burn it. But yeah,
so now we're heading down the hill into the sad news.
Now we're into the trough, the energy trough. So it's time to go for a walk. I've been demoted. I've gone down a division in squash to Division 8. So people may or may not know, I've been playing squash. That's my go-to, because I wanted to find a sport that I enjoyed doing. Squash is that. It is the best exercise, I think, because the intensity of fast, slow, power, skill. And yeah, sadly, the game goes, the two top get promoted, the middle one stays, and then the two bottom get demoted. And unfortunately, I was one of the two bottoms that got demoted to Division 8.
I'm surprised it isn't just one up, one down.
No, it's like quite severe. So yeah, and what's happened is the fifth player has stopped playing this time round. So it's only me that's gone down, which is a shame. So it's not as if I've gone down with somebody else. And I've switched my mindset to be like, before I was like, yeah, let's go. I wanted to try and build a competitive mindset and be like ruthless and have nothing affect me. For example, if you see the other player, regardless of seeing the other player, if they look good or they don't look good, still beating them, still crushing them, and trying to get into that mindset and build that, and not remove of my focus of I'm going to win or I have already won. I'm just coming to pick it up. kind of
So
thing.
do you tend to do mind games beforehand at all, like laughing and joking, but then take it serious, or just take it serious and make them feel cold and icy beforehand? Do you have any of those types of mind games?
Annoyingly, I'm too nice of a person to bother doing like the cold kind of front. I'm usually like, hey, how you doing? Like chatty. And I think sometimes that's the failure, because really I should be like cold and just like,
well, you can be
we're not
chatty
talking.
because some people might think, oh, this person's just doing it for a laugh, and then you take it serious. That's the other way of doing it. So you could double down the chattiness and talk about how, like, I don't know, talk about all the things you've done that makes you sound lazy. So then they're like, "Oh, this guy
give them a false sense of security." Yeah, exactly. Play on their like.
It's like, oh, I live 5 minutes away, so I just drove here rather than walked, and it's like, okay, I could beat this guy.
Annoyingly, so my last game that I had, the guy was like, "Oh, I've been in the pub. I've just had 2 pints, so I don't know how I'm going to play," and he still beat me. Now, what's really irritating about that? I was trying to just still stay focused on, regardless of him saying that. Initially, you would think, oh, I'm going to beat him because he's had a couple of pints and he might be a bit rough. But it didn't happen. So the next morning,
chilled him out.
Yeah, then the next game that he had in the morning at 9 a.m., he lost that game. But I'm like, oh, did I tire him out? He still won, but did I tire him out? He then plays the next game. So it's like, you almost don't want to be affected by any input from what they even say, because it might give you a false sense of security. So you're like, I'm going to crush this person regardless of what they say or what they do or how they act or how I act and how I do. But it's very challenging to kind of like get the consistency of, like we discussed before, like just 0 errors. Like one, I think my grip is slipping in my racket, so I'm getting errors, which is kind of then, I mean, it's a lost thing. If you're error prone, it doesn't matter if you're good, right? So it's eradicating that. But I've just eliminated I'm disappointed, but not disappointed overly that like, oh, I'm not going to play anymore. I'm like, cool, this is a part of the journey. And it's now is the time to figure out if I'm going to carry on. And it comes back to the whole like failure or whatever. Like, now is the moment that maybe 90% of people don't play the next league. But if you can be that person that decides to play anyway, regardless of the demotion, you then set yourself apart from a bunch of squash players. And if you take that in life or in business, there's always these crunch moments where it comes to like a decision moment, like, are you going to carry on or are you going to give up?
Thinking about it, is this your first relegation / demotion in life?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think so.
That's impressive.
It's not my first disappointment or first failure, but it is my first like, it is my first
not
like
gone up to top set and then dropped down to middle set or middle set down to bottom set.
No.
Wow.
I've always like, you go in, you stay in kind of thing. So I think it is very interesting, because on the flip side, generally speaking, I'm fine with, mistakes or failures in business or life or whatever. But then when it comes to specifically sport, an individual sport, it's me and my abilities. So have I trained enough? Have I worked hard enough? Did I stay focused? Did I play play the ball to the player, which is helping them out essentially, because I'm kind of wanting to play a good game. Like I'm wanting to rally. So yeah,
I feel like we need to get into this a little bit more. So relegation, first ever relegation in life.
Yeah, rub it in.
Did that feel any different? Because I think with a relegation, it highlights multiple failures. It's not just one failure. This is the difficulty, because I've been in a handful of relegations. I think I've been in more relegations than promotions, even though I am an all right hockey player. It highlights you've lost. Okay, I know hockey's a longer season than squash, but you've done multiple failures. So sometimes it hits home harder. Or like, let's say you're failing loads of exams, so you drop to bottom set. It is now like, you're not just tripping up every now and then. It's like a consistent tripping up. And now the world is telling you via this league system. Did that feel any different to any other setbacks? Because you can fail one exam in middle set, but then still be in middle set. But there's something about dropping down to bottom set and then try and get up to the middle set, if that makes sense.
I think the massive difference here is I didn't lose all of my games. I didn't get like absolutely obliterated in all of my games. So the loss is other players were better rather than I was bad. It was just other players were better. So they get promoted, and it wasn't that I was bad as such, because it's based on scores. So you still get points, broadly speaking, if you've got a couple of sets against them or a couple of games against them. So I personally feel like it doesn't feel like I've lost a bunch of games and then been demoted. So the hit isn't so hard. But I didn't lose all my games and I still got demoted. That also hurts, because it's like, like I did try my best. Granted, it wasn't as good as these others. So it's disappointed that my efforts, positive efforts, I still get demoted. So it's like, now I need to make sure, like, cool, my mindset now is I need to get out of here, because to come down and to stay down, that is worse than to come down once and then to go straight back up. So like everything has like a layer of disappointment and a layer of like failure or degree of failure that you can be comfortable with, that can hurt more, that can be more traumatic than others. So how do I minimize the trauma of being demoted? Not that it's traumatic as such. It's just like, gutted. Like, I didn't beat these people, but I did try my best. It's just that I blame it on the racket, right?
So. I guess it helps because it is just a hobby. It doesn't. You can literally sack it tomorrow or carry it on tomorrow. There's no, I guess, repercussions from a job point of view.
I would say if it was like, if you get demoted, you lose a bunch of sponsors. I think that would feel like, gutted, because now there's this second level ramification from the first level ramification of like, cool, you lost, you overall didn't have enough points, you get demoted. Sad. Second layer is then the whole, like, called the repercussions of that. You know?
Did you know in Premier League contracts, there's literally like if you get demoted, your wages halve instantly.
Yeah, which makes sense, right?
It is very interesting. So it makes sense why loads of people jump ship to then go back to the Prem, because basically their lives have gone from, however, like, it's halved instantly, which fair enough, they've probably got enough money for half you can still live off. But imagine if you randomly halved your wage. That's like crazy.
It's even down to the motivation of why do you even try and stay up? Why do you even try and like play well? You, in that case, probably want to carry on having the wages like that, or you want more wages. Now, for a place where there's no wages, there's literally just bragging rights. The winner of the league, the winner of each division gets a couple of squash balls. So it's like, what's the incentive to try and get back to League 7? The incentive is ego, of overcoming a setback. Like me being able to overcome a setback at an absolute individual physical level rather than a mental level or anything else. Like my physicality will get me ahead. Obviously, my mind is in that too, but my physical body will get me ahead after this setback. That's I'm driven to do that for sure. Because it's not a paid league, and thankfully, you don't have to pay to be in it either. But yeah, if I paid to be in it, it'd be worse. If I paid to be in a league that I then do well but still get demoted, it would probably feel worse. But it's a free league. I'm going to come straight back up. Like, it's one of those things, when you push a football down into water and it fires up even higher. That's what I'm hoping for. Let's go. So
if you want to sponsor Dan on his journey,
I'll wear your T-shirt. I'll wear carry a mug with me. So. But it is fascinating. Another thing I saw on Twitter recently is Sam Altman, I think his name is. Don't you? Yes, true. Another thing I saw on X, Sam Altman was interviewed. He's the CEO of OpenAI, the people that created ChatGPT. And he was saying, in life, generally speaking, 98% of people want you to kind of like stay where you are or move back. It's only like 2% of people encourage you and are for you. So really, you want to surround yourself with those people. And I'm like, again, as this whole mindset, encouragement, it takes a village to raise a child, but it also takes a village of encouraging people to raise good, persistent entrepreneurs that will carry on doing it. So it's like, in life, are we kind of like okay with the 98%? Do we have a 2%? Are we finding a 2%? Are we trying to grow the 2%? And I found it very interesting. One thing that I've noticed in the different behaviors, if I've started to like post just outwardly more on X about what I'm doing, and that is attracting people of the same type to me.
Bots.
Yeah, and bots, but mostly same people. So how do you increase your 2% or grow your 2% or find your 2%? Start speaking, start sharing to be able to do that. Yeah. And how do you identify the 98%? It's probably a case of like, when was the last encouraging thing that X people said? Like, where was the last encouraging thing? Or like, when you said something, who encouraged you last? Like, you know, or who was pessimistic?
Did you even try and
doubtful?
Do that then? What do X people say? Because X is Twitter. It's a clever way of saying.
Yeah, that's the. I'll have to use like algebra, another pi.
What do Y people say? No, not their Y. Just I need another letter.
What do alpha? Yeah, what do betas say? So, yeah, I think I have.
They say nothing. They stay quiet.
Yeah, I think I have stepped back from relationships that I remember seeing the phrase mutually beneficial. Mutually beneficial friendships, right? Or mutually beneficial relationships. Generally speaking, I think you start to notice over time that the word mutual isn't always there. It's always a bit like beneficial, but not in a mutual way. Similar with conversations that we went through when we're talking about compromise, right? Compromise is about mutually beneficial rather than one person foregoing something, end of. So yeah, I feel it's a case of auditing. Are you in friendships and circles where the relationships are mutually beneficial? If they're not mutually beneficial, then they could be considered a part of the 98% potentially. But it's more so that it's like, they're not very optimistic, they're not encouraging, they're not giving you ideas kind of thing. Therefore, that in itself could be something. It's kind of like the characters, their attitudes. Is it coming across and helping or hindering in some ways? So yeah, it's about finding your 2% and growing the 2%. And don't get demoted. No, demotion's fine. Oh, final thing, I think, in getting demoted,
pretty sure I'm kind of like that last 3 times.
Yeah, for sure.
This final note.
Yeah, it's because I'm just like riffing. In getting demoted, I'm not like, oh, stuff the league. I'm also, I think I'm kind of like, oh, I didn't care anyway. I don't think I'm doing that either. I'm not getting despondent with it. It's fine. Like, I'm like, cool. Nobody knows this stuff, even though I've just shared it on a podcast with thousands of people listening. But it's like, yeah, I'm not creating my own table. I'm like, cool. I'll just do my thing to get back and it'll be fine. And I'll learn the lessons personally and be much more like introspective and reflective of the experience for my own personal benefit, rather than overly get emotional about the disappointment and not go back and get back out into Division 7. So hopefully in a month's time, not even hopefully, factually speaking, in a month's time, I'll be back in Division 7. I've said it here. It's going to happen. It's a matter of time. Yeah.
This is where we go silent on the pod for 2 months together.
Yeah. You just won't see me. And then it'd be like, turns out he did get demoted again. There is now a Division 9 that they've created. So actually, that is true. I'm not in the last league because randomly there is a Division 9 now. Previous league, there was a Division 8 only. So I went from 7 to 8. Now there's a number 9. So I'm not even in the bottom league. So that's something to be happy about. Silver lining. So, and on that note, don't be a doorstop. Keep on hammering those nails. Bye for now.